What's going on, people? It's Mr. Do Daily back again for the latest Dialing with Des, the return of Dialing with Des. It's been a good few weeks. Forest have been playing on a Monday night. Unfortunately, the Queen passed away, so it's been about 5 or 6 weeks since I've actually had a chance to come on. But thankfully, more surprisingly than the result of the weekend, Mr. Dawes let me on after a win. It's not normally the case. He normally likes to steal all the glory himself. So, of course, this is your opportunity to get involved. Come on, have your say. Hit that link at the top of the page. Get in touch with any of the through any of the social media, scrolling across the bottom. And of course, do make your comments. I'll try and read out as many of those as I can. Be fantastic to hear. Lots of positivity. I think the last time I did this, I had to get my heart out. It was hard work. I was getting a lot of flack for Forest failures, but what a result! What a game to come back on and talk about. Absolutely fantastic. What a performance. Personally, after a tough week for me personally, I've been ill. I needed that and just couldn't believe the performance. Ryan Yates, I thought was absolutely out of this world on Saturday. I think that was his best game for Forest. I'll go that far. If you agree or disagree, please let me know. Other good performances. I thought Foy played well. I'm probably one of the only ones who've not been a massive fan so far, but I thought he had a really good game. Of course, Cook and McKenna stood firm and the fullbacks did really well for me. So anything you want to discuss about the game, anything about things that have happened in the past week, of course, we started at Brighton before that. Myself and Mr. Dore, along with a few others, were there. We took a bit of flack for that as well, sticking up for the boys after that great performance. But they backed it up, didn't they? And then thankfully they backed us up, because a lot of the comments were saying we was a little bit happy clappy, accepting a nil-nil draw when we need to be climbing the table. But my point was we had to build somewhere. We had to build from that solid base, and we did just that on Saturday. So it's fantastic to get the 3 points, and of course against Liverpool, rivals down the years, all that history. It's always a massive game, and they've not beat us since 1984. I did a little report after the game myself saying I can't wait for the 3 points next season, because if we play like that, I firmly believe we've got a brilliant chance of staying up. And of course, so far this season, everything's flitted up and down, hasn't it? 1 week we think we're going away without a whimper, and the next week we're thinking we've got a chance again. But Steve Cooper's doing what Steve Cooper does, isn't he? He tends to start slow. The teams build into his ideas. Of course, there was a change of philosophy prior to that Leicester game, and just after the Leicester game even, and it seems to have worked. 1 defeat in 4, only conceded 1 goal as well. A dodgy penalty at Wolves, so it definitely looks like things are changing, and I'm going on that positive note. So hopefully there's lots of positivity around as well. Before I get the guest in, just run through a little bit of housekeeping. If you enjoy this Dialing with Des, please give it a thumbs up. Upset Mr. Dore even more. Get me plenty of likes and plenty of views. That'll just make him not want me to come on again after the next win. But no, let's get plenty of likes, plenty of views for Dore himself. We know how hard he works at this. Hopefully you've seen the vlog from the weekend. Another great one. And he's just doing what he does. And of course, subscribe. Let's get him up to 10,000 by the end of the season. I'm sure if Forest carry on in this positive vein, people will come back. People will come back, keep viewing and keep sort of talking and wanting to be part of what's happening. That's what happened last season, isn't it? So let's hope it goes again this season. What I did say after that Brighton game, I was going to say tongue in cheek, but I'm starting to actually believe it. It almost felt like a Barnsley moment last season. Half time at Barnsley, of course, we were losing. Steve Cooper's second game, Lewis Grabban came on at half time, and the whole thing changed from that point. And it almost felt like that. So if anybody wants to pick me up on that, please do dial in. The link's at the top of the page. Like I say, like and subscribe. And what I will say is I've also got my own YouTube channel, Do Daily. It's something completely different. I've been out by the Trent tonight, walking. I mentioned it just before. I'd had a bit of a tough week being ill and 1 or 2 things. I talk about my experiences and hopefully how they can relate into other people, and just try and be positive day on day. 5-10 minutes each day. I'd love the support as well. Lots of my subscribers come from DoreOnTour. I'd love to get the views up and some likes. So if you can support that, that'd be fantastic. This is actually a little bit easier for me talking about football, but that's a difficult subject, but it's something I'm really passionate about as well, trying to help and support others, particularly when they're having a tough time. So if you can get behind that, that would be absolutely fantastic. I'll just read a few comments before we get Mark in. Mark's been waiting patiently. Of course, there's the link, top of the page. The man himself posted it in. Eve's in as usual. Good evening, Des. Hope you're well. I'm good, Eve. Hope you're well too. You, Eds, what a result on Saturday, Simon. I'd imagine this. Oh, this is a Swansea fan. Fair play, Forest. Good to see other fans tuning in as well. Ricky says, great to see you show back, Des. Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? Especially after that win. I keep saying that. I keep reminding Dore that he only turns me out after the defeat. Don't know what this guy's on with. Forest were excellent. Again, from the Swansea fan. Absolutely agree. Adam says, what a result. Come on, you Reds. As we can see, this positivity is starting to come back again, isn't it? The whole team played for the shirt. It was amazing. Again, I mentioned the defensive players and the midfield players. What about the performance of Awonye? What a performance that was up front. He's, in my opinion, he's not the best number 9 in the world, but he is a number 9. And we need that focal point up there. I'm a massive fan of our attacking players, but he definitely did a great job on Saturday. Kwame says, didn't see that coming. I don't think any of us did. JB said, Nottingham Forest man of the match, Virgil van Dijk. Well, he could have had 3 or 4, couldn't he, in all honesty. But against these teams, you have to ride your luck. You have to ride your luck and take your chances. And what a ball from Cook, by the way. That just popped in my head when I thought that. What a ball across. Henderson, man of the match performance. I'm sure there's going to be lots of different people coming in with man of the matches and who it was. I've heard so many. And that's when you've played well, isn't it? You've played well when there's 7 or 8 people being touted for man of the match. What a save by Henderson. I think that was the big thing. That one in the last minute, really sort of game-saving save. Sonny D says, was a bit like someone flipped the switch. It has been a little bit like that, hasn't it? This is another talking point from the game. Jay says the Scousers are spitting feathers this weekend. Seem to be complaining about a lot again, don't they? It's not like them, but we'll move on quickly. Tony agreed with me. What a cross from Cookie. Brian says if 7 or 8 players are firing, means you should be above average and hard to beat. Then Forest had Cook, McKenna, Henderson 4 and Yates out there. Others close, lots to look forward to. Of course, thanks for tuning in, Brian. Really appreciate the support. Mab says, hi, Des. Getting to the bottom of these for now. Good evening, friends. Awesome result. Mark. Cyrus said, Des, it felt like last season again in the stadium. That was big, wasn't it? That was big. That was the big Saturday. I absolutely loved it inside the ground. I felt like, hearing that song at the end, it was like, it's back. This is what we've been waiting for, and we've not had it enough this season. So let me know your thoughts about the atmosphere, anything you've got to say about that. Super chat here from James. Really, really appreciate the support. 42 years old, lifelong Forest fan here. Great result Saturday. Shame I couldn't make it as I had COVID. Oh, no, mate. No, that's not the one. That's not the one when we beat Liverpool at home. I hope you're feeling better, but thanks for the £4.99 as well. Perhaps Dore might start passing a few of those on to me, but he's tight. If you know him, he'll never buy a drink, so I won't even get that. James says, seem to have sorted the defence out now with Neil Carter to come back in now and get some more goals and get points on the board. It's looking better, isn't it? With 1 or 2 still on the fringes. Still like the look of Mangala, and he still doesn't appear to be fully fit, does he? So that could be somebody else who comes into the team. Paul says it was one of those games where everyone made a meaning contribution at some point. Again, we've spoken about how many were potential man of the match. And just one more for now. Tony says, are you going to Arsenal? Absolutely. I'll be there. You know, been lucky. I'm not in this 400, but I've been lucky to get a ticket every game so far. So I'll be there with Dore and the boys, supporting them on Sunday. I think that might be even tougher than this week, but who knows? So without any further ado, I've done plenty of talking already in the first few minutes. I'm going to get Mark in. And the big question is this the turning point? Good evening, Mark. Are you okay?
Yeah, great, mate. Still buzzing. Still buzzing from the weekend.
Absolutely. I think you can tell I am as well, can't you?
Yeah. Turning point. I think I've been seeing it coming for a couple of games, but yeah, no one expected us to do it in that style and keep Liverpool as quiet as we did. You know, everyone, like someone said in the chat, everyone put a shift in, did something meaningful, and it was just hopefully the start of us starting to gel a bit. You know, for me personally, nice to see Tyler up front. Although I agree with everyone's comments that he's still, rough diamond, still a way to go. But when he's starting, he's scoring. So for me, you've got to keep playing him. He deserves it, and if he doesn't deserve it, then play someone like Sam Surridge up front to start with. And I think we look a lot better when we're trying to get out from the back. He's a lot more likely to win those headers in the air when the ball goes long.
I think that's a good point you make, Mark, where you said that when he plays, he scores. He's got that knack of finding the right position. We're all joking about them hitting his knee or trickling over the line, but it doesn't matter, does it? If he's got a knack of getting on the end of something, because of course he nearly missed the goal on Saturday. He hit the post, and it was a little bit fortunate to come back to him. But he's found that knack, and if he's playing, for me, he's got to be playing facing the goal. We've got to have somebody like him who's upsetting defenders. When he was almost between. It was almost like he was facing the goal, but he was facing the defender in the face as well. If you see what I'm saying, so it made them it scared them a little bit. They didn't know what to do. He was on the toes of those two defenders, and as you've seen for the free kick we won before the goal, it was him who turned. He ran against Gomez, and Gomez had hauled him down, hadn't he? So I think it's so important to have somebody so high up and on that, almost on those last men.
Yeah, they didn't like him being so direct. It's hard for them to cope with. He kept all of their defence busy, and that's what we need. I like all the players who play just behind him, but it just seems that when we play Lingard, Johnson, and Morgan Gibbs-White in the same game, we're not quite getting that direct approach that Taiwo gives us, and I think that makes all the difference. But it wasn't just him. All the way through the team, everyone did something that meant something. Even the subs, even the subs that came on did a job. And Brennan Johnson, love him to bits, but I think he needed that little break. Came on fresh in the second half, and he looked dangerous, and they were worried by him. Even though we sort of changed formation and weren't as direct, we were still getting at them. So it didn't look like, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, look, we've took our striker off and gone more defensive," but we still had chances.
I was chatting to my mate about that, who I sit with at the game, and the only thing that surprised is a little bit with Taiwo. Of course, I'm a Johnson fan, and I say it all the time on here. I would still, even after that performance, I'd still start him in some shape or form. But what I was slightly surprised with was how early he took Taiwo off. And again, that's probably match fitness and match sharpness. We've seen it with Keenan Davis last season. Cooper would he'd almost take him off at a certain point in a game. It'd be 50 minutes, 55 minutes, 60 minutes, 65, to build his fitness. So I was quite surprised how early he went off. But what a player to be able to bring on, like you say. Brennan looked sharp, and their defence had obviously had a bit of a torrid afternoon. And for as much as I won't say criticised because it's the wrong word, but for as much as we've questioned, even tonight, we've questioned Taiwo. I've seen him bully Antonio, and Antonio loses rag with him and ended up getting subbed. And then he's bullied not Antonio, sorry, the guy at the back. Yeah, the centre half. Was it Zuma?
Zuma, yeah.
Yeah.
He scored tonight for West Ham, by the way, just before.
Yeah, I just saw it. But I seen him bully him. I was thinking of Niakate and that pairing.
Yeah, he did the same. He did the same to Antonio.
And we've seen him do the same to Gomez and get amongst Van Dijk. And they Liverpool haven't been fantastic this season, but they've been some of their better players. And of course, over the last couple of years, Van Dijk's probably been the best, if not just behind Salah. So he's given them he's given his value, isn't he? You know, he's given his value. We haven't spent 85 million on a striker. We're not signing Haaland or Salah or Mane. You know, so I think he is giving us a bit of value, and it'd just be great to see some confidence build, wouldn't it? And to see how far he could go in this team.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say Taiwo deserves to get a run. Johnson, for me, I think, you know, starting, although it was a home game, I like the change of formation for the different games. So at home, maybe start Johnson and then bring him on in the second half in away games, that sort of thing. Just freshen things up, different approach. And I think Johnson, he'll do a lot better for that because he's still a young kid. I mean, he's still learning his trade in the Premier League. He's not getting the service he was last season from Spence, so he's got to find a way to get into the game more.
Yeah, I agree, but I also thought if there was one game to suit Johnson with how high Liverpool play up the pitch, I thought that might have been the one where, because the wing backs, of course, bomb on, and the fullback, sorry, and then the defence tend to play really high. I thought if there were one game, it could have been Johnson's game, but we can't complain, can we? We spoke a lot about Taiwo and the positive impact he's made. Just before we go, going back to that original question I posed, and which I'm going to ask everybody tonight: is this the turning point? Can we bounce on from here?
I think we need to use it like that. You know, Cooper talked a lot post-match about how he told the players, you've got to appreciate the history of the game, the history between Forest and Liverpool, and you've got to use this. Forest need to use it as a reference point and build on it. Use it to build on our improvement over the last few games and get higher up the league. And I think, yeah, it can be. You know, we got a tough one against Arsenal, but then we've got Palace and Brentford. I think we can get something out of both of those. A lot of people talking about when we come back from the World Cup, we've got a tough couple of games against Man U and Chelsea. But, you know, we're not on our own. When you look at some of the other teams, I've got written down. So when they come back from Christmas, Wolves have got Everton and Man U. Leeds have got Man City and Newcastle. Leicester have got Newcastle and Liverpool. So they're all teams that are down there and around us. They've all got a tough comeback after the World Cup as well. So, you know, I don't think we're in a bad position at the moment, especially when you look at the league table and there's only 6 points covering 9th to 20th. You know,
there's a comment here. The result against Liverpool will give the team confidence boost that was so badly needed. Confidence is key. I think it is, isn't it? Confidence is massive, and I think in a Steve Cooper team, this is what I was almost talking about last season. It was like that second half at Barnsley. We played well in that game, to be fair, but then there were a couple of games where we had to really scrape it out. You know, I think of the Bristol City one. There were QPR away where we scored late and equalised. Lots of games where we did okay, but we had to sort of dig out the result. And I think as the season went on, by the time we got to sort of Blackburn away and QPR at home, sort of late February, March, we was absolutely flying. They'd won that many games. It was like, even if we go behind, we're going to win this football match. That's
what I was going to say. There seemed to be a few games where even when we're playing really well, we'd go behind, but then turn it around before half time sometimes. You know, and the feel-good factor was immense last season, and hopefully we can use that. A lot of people were very down after chucking away leads at home against Bournemouth and Fulham, and I think that did darken the mood a bit, especially at home, because we talked about if we're going to survive, we've got to make City Ground a fortress, and we've got to get as many points at home as we can. So it's that was a bit down, but there has been shoots of improvement the last few games, especially second half at Brighton, and they've just carried it on into the Liverpool game, and we just need to use that to kick-start the rest of the season now. Just a shame the World Cup break is coming up now, so that's going to halt things for a bit, and we'll lose a few players for a few weeks. But hopefully when we come back,
the flip side of that, we might get a few back as well, Mark, and it might be just what we need in many ways. I've always said from the start of the season there'll be lots of teams who have a crap start, and then the World Cup comes, and then the season turns more so than normal. Do you know, at Christmas time things tend to flip, and then there'll be some teams who've had a cracking start, come back after the World Cup, and it all goes wrong. So hopefully we're the latter on that. Just one or two comments before you go. Tony said we should be fresh after the World Cup. Again, the chance for one or two players to come back. Paul says, I was really pleased that we're on the front foot and in their faces from the start instead of surrendering the initiative and dropping off. I think that's important, wasn't it? Because I'll be honest, I was worried after the Wolves game. I was really worried because whilst Brighton created a lot of chances in that first half, it's understandable. Brighton are a good side, probably the second best passing side I'd seen in the league, almost mini Man City. Probably rethink that this Sunday when we go to Arsenal. But Brighton created a lot of chances. But when Wolves were creating chances in the first half, I thought these don't look very good. So it worried me. But all they've done from that, they've just built on it. I was saying after the Wolves game that was the kind of game we needed to dig out. Somehow, if we'd have scored that penalty and we'd have nicked a chance like with Ryan Yates' header, that could have been the turning point. But somehow we found it in the... It almost feels like we found it in the Brighton game by conceding so many chances in that first half and then actually having something about us to go at them again. So, yeah, feeling really positive now. And I think one word answer to this question before we go. I appreciate you coming on and starting the show. It's been great to talk about Tyro. Are we staying up?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on there, Mark. Great, like I say, great to get the show started, and we've got plenty to come on now. So hopefully catch up soon, and appreciate your input.
Up the Forest.
Up the Forest. Cheers, mate. Great start there. Really enjoyed talking to Mark. A lot said about Tyro, and he's got us talking, hasn't he? We was all a bit disappointed and probably a bit disillusioned with him when he came in. We was expecting big things, and it didn't quite come off. But all of a sudden, like Mark says, when he plays, he scores. And if you've got a striker who scores when you win 1-0, they're kind of priceless, aren't they? It's happening it always used to happen at Arsenal. I noticed in the last few weeks it's been happening at Arsenal quite a lot as well. So it's just about digging out those results and trying to build on it the best we can. I'm getting into a few more comments before we bring Adam in. Mick says, love the fact that they say it was a shock result. It's almost as if teams are not allowed to beat the so-called top six. Tell me about it. And don't get me started on VAR either, because we'd be here all night. There was another one in that West Ham game. The bigger club tend to get the decision, which is disgraceful. But it's almost as if we're not, Mick. And the amount of free kicks the referee gave Liverpool, which were probably 70-30 in our favour, was just annoying. It was getting on my nerves. I just think they were giving them possession back at every opportunity, and we still beat them. But anyway, that's my little rant over. Sonny D, keep heads high like Saturday. I never go at whoever's playing, and we can get the points from anyone. Good point. That in all reality, if we are being realistic, probably looking at a defeat at Arsenal because they've played really well this season. But I'd take three points from I'd take 3 or 4 points. 4 points would be great from the 2 after that. If we can win one and draw one, we can't just say we're going to beat these sides at home now, because Palace and Brentford are still really good Premier League teams established. So I take 3 or 4 points from those, even 1 win, 1 defeat. If I could be given it now, and I never like sort of accepting things. I want us to win every game. If I could be given it now, I'd probably take a win from the next 3 and go into the break safely in the knowledge we're not the worst team in Premier League history, because we all know who they are, don't we? Life of Z said, you Reds. Just a few comments and we'll bring Adam on. The True Red, we are stopping up. Definitely, come on. We're in that mindset this week. Sunny D, 11 men versus 11 men at the end of the day. Get dug in and have a go. Let's go for it. If we get a result at Arsenal, we'll all be going into Christmas really, really happy. When the team presses for 90 minutes, they win. It's easy, really. Well, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because that's Cooper's natural style. And in the last couple of weeks, he's had to adopt it, go to a defensive style and almost reintroduce it bit by bit as confidence builds. So it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of games how that goes. Comment here from Facebook, probably a Liverpool fan. You're still going down. We still won on Saturday, just saying. Kay says, hi, everyone. There's a comment here, and we'll perhaps talk to Adam about the Arsenal game. Tony, my mate's an Arsenal season ticket holder. They're worried about Forest. And why wouldn't they be? This guy's obviously happy with the result on Saturday. Simon says, awesome Saturday. Like to see a bit of old school Forest beating teams on the break. Felt a bit like that, didn't it? It felt a bit like the goal to me, even though it wasn't the same. It felt like that Gary Birtle's goal all those years ago when they broke up the pitch and he sticks it into the goal. I don't know why. Just reminded me of it. Pat says Brighton had more possession than City at the weekend and was a great point at their place. They're a good side. Brighton are a good side. That's why we were so happy to come away. Even though they're not on a great run, they're a very good side with some good players. Paul says, as far as I know, there's no VAR interventions in our game and it was so much better for it. Agree with you about the ref, Des. Absolutely. We were never going to get anything out of him. And this is an interesting point. Again, Mark just popped back in and says, Arsenal got to play away in Europe tomorrow night, so we will be much fresher. And one more about Arsenal, because I said we'd probably talk about it. VB says, Arsenal going to look after the ball much better than Liverpool. We're going to have to be sharp. Totally agree. They look an absolutely brilliant side. Absolutely fantastic. And this guy's piped up. Not sure who he is. DoreOnTour. Anyway, hit the like button, guys. Keep watching. 100 people in. That's what a win does, doesn't it? It brings them all back in, Mr. Dore. They're all coming back. Probably for Des, but I'll try and keep them around for your next one as well. On that note, we'll bring in Adam. You all right, mate?
I'm all right, thanks, Des. How are you? I'm
good, thank you. Happy with the result?
Oh, over the moon. Never seen Forest in my lifetime beat Liverpool. So it was kind of nice because, we should have beat them in the FA Cup last season. So bit of payback, I guess, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you say that because one of my big things I've seen a bit more. I am a bit older. You might not be able to tell. Just kidding. One of my big things supporting Forest. I've seen Forest beat Liverpool at home. Obviously, I'd love to go to Anfield and see us win there. That is the one thing I want to tick off at some point because we all know why. I don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of why.
I'll tell you what, it was so funny this morning because I got a work colleague of mine who's a big Liverpool fan, and it's funny because he even predicted that his team were going to lose against us on Saturday, and he got the right score as well. And I remember him coming in this morning, and I went up to him and I went, just that evil laugh, you know what I mean, just pointing at him and just and he had a hoodie on and he was just trying to put his hood over his head just to hide his face.
Brilliant. So Is this the turning point, Adam? Is this where we can really think we're in the Premier League? We can take it on. We can have many more days like Saturday. Have you seen enough yet to think, yeah, we're here to stay?
I think it's a platform, and I think we can build this from here now. You know, we took the game to Liverpool like there was no tomorrow, and I think you know, going back to Awoniyi, you know, he was the perfect striker to play on that day because of his physicality going against the likes of Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk. So, and they're two very physical centre halves, and he was the right man for it, and he got the goal, which was a bonus, and obviously that's going to boost his confidence even more now. So it's a platform for us. We can work from it now, and there's more to come from Forest, I believe. I really do, and you know, I don't think I think there's more games to come that can transform our season, if that makes sense. But this game, we needed it. You know, no matter who the team was, we needed that win. Especially when we haven't won since August. So we definitely needed that win on Saturday, that's for sure.
I think that's a good point you made, Adam. We needed a win. Yes, it's great to beat Liverpool. It's fantastic, you know, and gets us all buzzing and happy with what happened on Saturday. But the bigger picture, we needed to get 3 points on the board and just stay in touch, especially with this break getting ever closer. You know, there's now only 3 games to go. If we was 5, 6, 7 points adrift, you'd come back and you'd be Man U, Chelsea, and you're already struggling, aren't you? So I think you're right there. It was definitely important, but it was the fact it was Liverpool, wasn't it? There's a couple of comments here I'm just going to pop up. Would like to make a special announcement of how quiet the Liverpool fans was. And there's another one here. The atmosphere was on another level Saturday. Hardly a peep from the Scousers. Forest and magic on and off the pitch. Who, in your opinion, Adam, who stood out? Who was the big players on Saturday?
The big players for me, I'll start with the obvious. Dean Henderson with the fantastic saves he made. And Ryan Yates, you know, a lot, we rave about him a lot, but I'm just being honest. He was an absolute warrior on Saturday, in the middle of the park. No nonsense whatsoever. Didn't care who they were, and that's how your attitude should be as a footballer. And he worked really hard on Saturday, and he just bleeds Forest. You know, he's worked his way up. You know, quite a lot, a bit like a lot of our youth academy players have done now. But for me, it was Dean Henderson. Ryan Yates definitely stood out for me, absolute workhorse. Awoniyi, of course, because not just for getting a goal, because I felt like he ran a good amount of yards on Saturday as well. So it wasn't just in the penalty area all the time. He was working for the ball as well. I think even Lingard had a better game Saturday. You know, okay, the finishing in the first half could have been a bit better, but it will come in time. And I think because he's been benched most of the time, and he started on Saturday, and now he's actually proper had a shot on goal. And I think that's going to give him more confidence. So for me, Dean Henderson, Ryan Yates, Jesse Lingard, and Taiwo Awoniyi, really.
So basically, the spine of the team, you know, a real sort of core there. And I think you're right. Again, you made a good point about Awoniyi not necessarily doing all his work in the penalty area. I think, again, with the way Liverpool played, and it only dawned on me as you were saying that, the way Liverpool played with the fullbacks high, he had a chance to pull their centre-backs wide. I kept talking to my mates saying, look how wide those centre-backs are. Whether you're playing at school or you're playing on a Sunday league or in the Premier League, your centre-backs have to be close. That's what's happened with Cook and McKenna. They've got closer together, and it makes everything more compact. It's all about partnerships on a football pitch. And what Awoniyi were doing was almost dragging Gomez, and particularly Gomez, to one side, you know, and that created then a massive gap between the centre-backs. Once you've got a gap there and your full-backs are high, they're going to have problems if we hit them, especially with the ability of Gibbs-White, of Johnson, of Lingard. And I think that's really interesting. And like I say, it's just dawned on me as we're speaking. So again, another sort of massive plus point for 1 year. I think on that, what I'm kind of getting to is, would you keep the same team on Sunday?
Yes, I would. Because you want some consistency going now. If your team, if I was Steve Cooper now, I'd look at that team and think, yes, we've played against Liverpool, we've beaten 1-0. We put 200% into that game, and now we're going away to the Gunners on Sunday. And I think now he's got to look at this. He's got to try and keep the same squad in as much as possible, the same starting lineup. If you know your team's picking results, whether if there's draws or wins, and your players are playing really well, stick to it. Unless something goes wrong again, then maybe make a couple of changes. But I think after looking at that result on Saturday, I think he will definitely play the same side. And one person I need to mention as well, and this was his best performance since the West Ham game, Kiate.
Yes, he played well, to be fair. He's not been mentioned.
It was a bit like a Sambasso, you know what I mean? Because he got a bit like glass legs, but he runs for the ball, he gets a bit stuck in, he gets a bit forward as well. So, a bit like a Sambasso. But for me, Kiate, that was by far his best performance since the West Ham game, in my opinion.
I think you're right. And I think another guy, I won't sort of go on too long because there's people waiting at him, but I think another guy who played his best game for Forest was Aurora.
Yeah.
Aurora, he got in the way of everything. He must have been annoying to play. Didn't do anything spectacular, but he were blocking them for corners. He were, blocking crosses and just getting in the way of Robertson. Robertson was very quiet. And I think when he's ticking, Liverpool are ticking a lot of the time. So another great performance around the pitch. But I appreciate you coming on, mate. There's lots of people waiting. Always great to catch up with you. I'm sure I'll see you around.
I think we're going to draw 1-1. That's my prediction for next Sunday. 1-1.
Well, just before you go, there's a comment here from Brian. Arsenal won last at 8 at home. Forest not won away. Surely Arsenal are crapping it. It's a classic Cooper and Buster, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, thanks for coming on, mate. Really, really appreciate it.
It does. Up the Forest.
Cheers, Adam. Up the Forest. That's Adam. Comes on quite regular. Great opinions again. Some good points made, particularly about Tyro and performances on Sunday. There's a couple of comments I wanted to sort of get stuck into myself just before I bring Anton. So I read that one. It's this one I was looking at. Do you think Forest were better Saturday than last season's FA Cup game? That's a really good question, isn't it? It's a really interesting one. I actually think it was a totally different game, wasn't it? I think the performance on Saturday was a lot better. Last year we was playing with a lot more fluidity. We had a formation, we were set. We took our game to them. Of course, over the last couple of weeks in the Premier League, we've had to adjust to the big time, and we've had to sort of, I'm sure, and I heard Jamie Carragher saying this tonight, Steve Cooper's probably got to sort of swallow a pill and go with it at the moment. It's not the way he wants them to be playing long term. So whilst I thought the performance was fantastic last season, and I thought we probably had more chance of beating them last season, this season it was we had to perform to the ability of the guys in front of us, if you know what I mean. It was a better team we were playing. And sometimes you can win a football match without being technically the best football team. There's so many ways to win one. And I think we had to really dig deep. We had to play our game, which was always going to be a battle, get them into a battle. And when you come out of it and you see the performances of Kiate and Ryan Yates and Aurora, who've just got stuck in and got in the thick of it, and Awanye pulling them all over the place, I think that's massive, and it's massive for confidence, isn't it? Last season we was on the crest of a wave anyway. We was absolutely flying, and it was all, the promotion charge was on. But this season it feels so much more important all of a sudden. What I will say, I touched on it right at the start. The comment I made about Ryan Yates, I was tweeting all night about Ryan Yates on Saturday. I thought he was absolutely out of this world. I thought it was his best performance. He was all over that midfield. And if that was any player in any other team, in a bigger team, they'd be absolutely raving about the work he did. His passing was spot on. You know, he often gets criticised for the basics. His passing was spot on. And I've said in recent weeks that, probably a bit too critical, but I've said that 4 years, Ryan Yates, that can't pass, that can't tackle, sorry. And whilst I believe, whilst I saw Foyer had a good game, you know, they really complemented each other well, with the fact that Coyote was there doing a similar job. So really, really impressed with that. I'm really pleased how much he's come on, you know, and he's, whilst all these signings have come in and these big money players, you know, he still finds a way into the team, doesn't he? And that can only make us proud as lifelong fans like him. But rather than going on about Ryan Yates all night, I've been going on about him since Saturday. I'm going to get Ant in and get his opinion. Evening, Ant, you all right?
Hi, Des. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, mate. Nice to see you on Saturday.
Yeah, always good to see you, mate.
Albeit very briefly.
It was a brief one, wasn't it? Yeah.
So have we turned the corner?
Well, from the beginning of the season, I was confident we had the squad and the manager to keep us up reasonably comfortably. The first time I had a doubt was after the Leicester match. That, to me, it wasn't a 4-0 score. The performance, to me, really had me concerned. Not that we had the wrong manager, not that we didn't have the squad capable, but were they going to get it together and get it right? Since then, Steve Cooper and the boys have, I don't think a lot of people really understand how low we were at that point to how we've come to beat Liverpool on Saturday. The point against Brighton, it's a massive point. Brighton are a good team. Not a lot of teams are going to get points away at Brighton. And although it wasn't the world's most magnificent performance, we got away from that place with a point, which is massive. And then we move on to the Liverpool-Arsenal games. And let's be honest, the majority of Forest fans point 0 points. I think if somebody had said to us, you can have 2 points out of those 2 games, we'd have snapped their hands off. Well, we've got 3 already. So Sunday is literally the proverbial free hit. And I love watching Arsenal. They are a magnificent football team. That's how football should be played, in my opinion. I think a lot of people know my opinion of Tottenham. But the last couple of games, particularly in the second halves, they've really struggled. So if Forest can keep it tight and get through that initial period where they absolutely bombard, then maybe, just maybe, I might be going over the top here, maybe, just maybe in that second half, we can come away with something. And the team we have, the team that played on Saturday, was the first time that I really saw that magic word gelling. It looked like a football team that played together. Every player was magnificent. I'd like to give a little shout out for Jesse Lingard. A lot of people slag Jesse Lingard off, and I can understand because he was a high profile signing and he's not really produced a great deal. But what people don't see, particularly people, and this is no slight against people who watch on TV whatsoever, not everybody could be in that ground. But what you don't see on TV is, well, on TV, the camera follows the ball. So what you never see is any of the work that the players do off the ball. And Jesse Lingard on Saturday ran his arse off. He was up and down, up and down, up and down. But on TV, you won't see that. So people say, well, what did he do?
I think that's the point, mate. And I saw before this little run, Morgan Gibbs-White getting a lot of flack. And he does exactly the same.
He does.
You know, he's tracking the fullback. He's been tracking fullbacks down. And I've noticed in the last 5 or 6 games when it wasn't going well for him, he was still tracking them back and putting so much work in. Just because he's not scoring a scream or doing a flick or whatever.
Morgan Gibbs-White, sorry, Des. Morgan Gibbs-White is that far away from getting it right. You know, at the moment, those beautiful little flicks he does are just not quite coming off, but they will. We've seen him do it. They will.
So I'm just going to go back to your first point. you can see us getting something at Arsenal. I'm just going to read Chapo's comment.
I'm heady. We've just beat Liverpool. What do you expect?
So obviously Chapo's referring back to last weekend. Carlsberg don't do weekends, but if they did, we could have another Carlsberg weekend this weekend if it all goes to Ant's plan.
Yeah. I'll put it this way: I'm a little more confident now than I was a couple of weeks ago. You know. And you're right about Taiwo. Sorry, another little thing I'd like to mention on Taiwo. Taiwo's been in and out of that side. He's a striker. A lot of strikers live on confidence. They live on getting a run in the team, getting to know the teammates, so teammates know where to put the ball. He's been in and out. We've not been playing the most attractive, flowing football. It's not been getting, and the amount of abuse on the cesspit known as Twitter and the like that he got after hitting the post against Leicester. I'll let everybody into a little secret now. Taiwo's probably had very few shots at goal. He's got 3 goals. And I'll let you know now, not even Harry Kane, not even Alfie Haaland, Erling Haaland scores with every single shot they take. They occasionally hit the post or the bar, or it goes a little wide, or the goalkeeper saves it. He missed a chance. And he got abuse.
That's what strikers do, isn't it? Do you know, and the good ones come back and prove you wrong. And every
that
time
that goal he scored against Liverpool, don't take away from how quickly he reacted to that ball coming off the post.
Yeah,
that was a striker's instinct. It came off the, he shot it, hit the post. He reacted straight away and calmly put it into the back of the net. That's a striker.
Here's one to back up your point, and Taiwo should be starting every game. 3 goals from the 5 games where he's got 60 minutes plus. It's an interesting stat, isn't it? Another one, the abuse Taiwo gets from Forest fans is disgraceful. I'm not sure he gets abuse.
he got abuse after that miss against Leicester, but you know, to be fair, Forest fans are really down in the dumps.
He's had some stick, and I think this is the point as well, isn't it? You know, in many aspects, I know what Michael's saying here, but patience was always going to be key, and still will be. We have to trust the process and also the manager. There are going to be ups and downs, but let's stick at it. I think whether you're talking about the team or individuals, that's so important because, again, I touched on it right at the start, that Cooper's teams tend to grow into a season. And before you know it, it starts snowballing and they start moving on. You know, it was so important to keep him because we all, for as worried and concerned as we were, and we have been, there's no point saying we weren't, we knew there was more to come. We knew that Cooper's got this almost, not a magic touch because it's not as simple as that, is it? But we knew he could do something. And for him to be able to change the tactics, you know, take it back to what Villa was, because let's face it, Villa was drab. Wolves was worse, you know, but it was a process. And then Brighton just became a little bit more expansive in the second half. And then in the game we least expect it, Liverpool, they started to come out the shell.
And we should never, ever underplay. I don't think a lot of people sit down and take the time to think. Steve Cooper had 22 new players to work with. He had a variety of language barriers, because they don't all speak perfect English. Cultural changes for those players that were brought in from abroad. It takes any player, well, almost any player, time to settle into the Premier League, the hardest league in the world. It takes time. 22 players we've had to try. And now we're just seeing those shoots, aren't we? Of where the players you could see on Saturday, they were starting to know where they were, where each other were. That takes time. You've got to give them time. And we've got plenty of time left.
Absolutely. Talking about time, Gonna move on to the next guest, but one quick question before we go. One word. Staying up?
Oh, God. 2 words, without doubt.
Right, thanks for that, mate. Really appreciate you coming on, taking your time. It's good to catch up with you, and I'm sure I'll see you at the game soon.
Yeah, I'll see you in the next one.
Cheers, Dan.
Take it easy, Des.
More great points there. Really passionate about the way things are turning around there, and he's really confident as well going into that Arsenal game. So looking forward to seeing how that all pans out. A couple of comments I'd like to get through. I thought this as well, Tom. Good to see Wazza back in the shirt. Again, just like Yates, we always take extra pride, don't we, in when academy players come through and get in the team. So, yeah, it's good to see him in the last couple of games, and hopefully his confidence will build as well. Foles Flag says 2 more points and we equal 11 points, Des. Yeah, but if we get 3, we're in front of them. We don't even need to worry about equaling it, do we? I see your point there, though. Sonny D says Yates is something else. Would still give 100% if it was shot in the leg. Strange analogy, but totally agree with you. James says Foiler was superb, covered the most miles on the pitch according to stats, almost 12k. Comfortable on the ball too. Interesting that about the covering miles on the pitch. He did look very good on the ball. I don't know if it was. I thought Forest won the midfield battle full stop. Again, against the team that are as good as they are, we absolutely smashed them in midfield, and I think that ultimately won us the game because all over the pitch we were winning individual battles, but right in that middle where the game's controlled, we had him. We had Yates. He had him in his back pocket. Simon says cup match against Arsenal, youngsters, international players. Arsenal couldn't afford players like Yates. Adam says, pleasure being on the show again, Des. Great catching up. Great to have you on. Justin backing up Ant's point. Lingard put a great shift in, talking about the amount of running he did. Lingard upped his game on Saturday for sure. Again, I said when he had that chance, I said to the guys around me, I said, if that was Lingard's all right footed, and that chance came on his left foot. If that's on his right foot, I think he bends it in the top corner like he used to for Man United. But again, it's good to see him creeping into the game again, isn't it? Just like the rest. Another one says Arsenal struggled against Southampton yesterday. I think we can do them. I touched on the fact I don't think they've been struggling. They've been absolutely battering teams till they go 1-0 up. But they have only been winning by the odd goal or drawing like they had yesterday, even in Europe against Bodo Glimt or whatever they're called. So you never know. It's about holding them out for as long as we can, isn't it? And then seeing where we go from there. I've read that comment. The abuse Tyro gets... Oh, I've read that one, sorry. Just a reminder, there's 100 people watching. Please give this episode a thumbs up. It's great to see so many people coming on and leaving positive comments. Keep your comments coming. Subscribe to the channel if you've never seen it before, or if you're a follower of another team. We've got a couple in here moaning, saying we're going down every 5 minutes. But who knows, eh? Who knows now? Going to get the next guest in. He's been waiting quite a long time now. Warren, you all right?
Evening, Des. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. The question has been the same. It's been the same to everyone. Is this the turning point? Have we turned the corner?
It's a step forward, definitely. I mean, I don't want to take the shine off the victory because we all love it. We all love beating Liverpool. I mean, especially sort of your generation, my generation, generations before me. We know the history, so it's great to beat them. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I just want to be realistic and say let's temper expectations, because we've only won 1 game in 10. But the last 4 games, I've seen a real change in the way Cooper's sent them out to play. We've played very defensive. And then finally, against Liverpool, we've got that defensive base, but he's let them off the lead a little bit. And we've shown a lot more press and a lot more attacking. So in terms of performance, it's brilliant. And I really hope that it is, the next step forward is the turning point and we can push on from there. But obviously, big game next weekend on Sunday against Arsenal. All right, they weren't great against Southampton, but so far they've been, one of the 2 best teams in the league by far. So let's see, let's hopefully that we can put that performance in again, because what was impressive on Saturday was everyone turned up. We haven't seen that, I don't think. I can't think of a game where, possibly the Spurs game in the season, but apart from that, it was a performance where every Forest player, everyone in the Garibaldi on Saturday played the heart out. And you can see that. I mean, you said right at the top of the show, the person who impressed me, who I have been quite critical of, was Freuler. I thought he really went about his business well on Saturday. You know, controlled that midfield, a lot of great passing. And as the stat just said before, you know, I saw a stat saying he'd run near 11K on Saturday. And it was by far, you know, the most mileage or the most kilometres covered by any Forest player. Do you think it's a turning point?
I think that's interesting, isn't it? And we talk about all these players. There's still guys we've not mentioned. We've not mentioned Nico Williams. I thought he had one of his best games as well. You know, there was Williams, there was Gibbs White, who not really effective in an attacking sense, but again, ran his socks off. Lingard just getting into the game. You know, so
I think that was one of Lingard's best performances, to be honest.
It's so good to see them just creeping the way into form. And again, somebody touched on it there. I just put the comment on. Lingard's celebration after the final whistle showed he's not just here for the money. That kind of thing is so important when we're in this situation, isn't it? You know, if he's going around like that and we're winning 3 out of 4 games and he's still not playing well, and you might be questioning him thinking he's a fancy down, but we need to see that kind of thing. You know, we need to see that passion just to give us that belief and confidence as fans as well. And when they give us something, you know, everyone comments about the Brighton game, and there's been lots of comments tonight about atmosphere. Second half at Brighton, the atmosphere was incredible because the guys gave something. Brennan Johnson charged one down. He'd run about 50 yards to do it. And when you're seeing this kind of thing, and Gibbs White and Lingard working so hard off the ball, because that's something I've been critical in recent weeks. We've been so bad off the ball. First half against Brighton, I thought we were decent when we had the ball, but we were shocking. They got in behind us every single time, got to that byline, but all of a sudden they've almost gone compact, and you've got players working so hard. The front players more than probably as much as anyone, and you've already touched on the fact. Foyer doing a lot of running. You know, I wasn't quite sure what he was bringing to the table, if I'm honest.
No, I thought a lot of people would just judge him on reputation rather than actual performance, because he hasn't, until Saturday, he's not impressed me really. He's not played at the level I was expecting for someone who's recently been playing consistently in the Champions League. You know, we haven't seen that from him.
And I think this point kind of backs that up, Mr. Dan. That midfield of Yates, Kouyaté and Foyer was immense. They really clicked.
Yeah.
Foyer's game allowed Kouyaté and Yates the licence to break at the Liverpool defence. And I think that's right, isn't it? I spoke about Yates, and I keep going back to Yates because I was so impressed. Because he just did that job where he was cutting off everything in the middle. He did it against Brighton. But as soon as he can get that ball to Foyer, he can then start thinking in an attacking sense. He can get up the pitch, you know, and Kouyaté sort of getting around side to side, upsetting people. I think it makes a massive difference. And it's not something we're used to, is it? So in a way, whilst we'd love to see this high press and this great football, it's kind of pleasing as well, isn't it, to know they can mix it up.
Yeah, I mean, he's played Cooper's played 4-3-3 last few games. But we've noticed a lot of the games, they're dropping back almost into a 4-5-1. And I did see his interview after the Brighton game where he said he asked Lingard and Gibbs White to drop back and play narrow. So we had that good defensive base. And it was a very defensive performance throughout. But as you said, I thought they were shocking first half, but there was a real commitment second half. It might not have been the best performance, but they worked really hard to keep a clean sheet and get the point. And that is then the basis to move on, as we saw this week, where now they kept a good defence. I mean, admittedly, if Liverpool had a decent striker on the field on Saturday, you know, Van Dijk missed a lot of chances. If they'd gone to somebody else, we may have had a different result. But that's football, isn't it? You know, you take your chances, you said earlier, when you get them. I mean, I don't think it was a strong Liverpool team on Saturday as well. Once again, to be realistic, not take any shine off the performance and the result. What do you think? I'd even say that Liverpool team on Saturday, was weaker than earlier in last season's team they bought for the FA Cup game.
I'm not sure. I quite like the fact we were playing Milner and not Trent Alexander. I think we'd have done a lot more defending if Trent had played. Milner was a bit easier to cope with. But other than that, I thought they were quite strong. I thought that Carvalho looks a really tidy player. And then Firmino's a great player. I don't understand why he don't play all the time for them. But no, I'm not sure, mate. I see where you're going.
I was thinking more in the midfield because they've got the young lads out.
Midfield's not what it was, but
yeah, and I think they had about 7 of the first 18 injured, and then obviously Thiago apparently had was it an ear infection I read on Sunday, so he didn't start. So that was 8 of the sort of first 18 not playing. So it wasn't a full Liverpool team.
They still had Jordan Henderson on the bench, and that guy still plays for England. Do you know? So,
yeah, rightly or wrongly.
I'm not sure he should, but
yeah.
I've never been a fan. What I do want to get back to before we sort of move on, mate, is you mentioned consistency, and I mentioned the fact that it's good to see us playing in a different way. And I think early in the season, it was a lot more aesthetically pleasing on the eye when it worked against Tottenham, and when we had chances against West Ham, it was, oh, well, we can take it to teams and we can do this. And even latter stages against Everton. But they've actually, from almost having to go to a style of play, they've actually found consistency from that, haven't they? They've consistently played better. You know, they've done their jobs a lot more effectively, and it's showing that they're getting results. And like anything in life, you know, not just football, if you're consistent, you know, you've got half a chance of sort of getting to where you want to be. So I think the real key point, and it shouldn't be overlooked, we perhaps have done that tonight, with this win especially, is the role that the manager plays and the way you can get something from the team and the players. They all believe in him. You know, I'm not saying I talk to everybody, but I bump into 1 or 2 people where I live and get to talk to people kind of in the know, and they're all talking about Steve Cooper and how much of an impact he has, and the players believe in him. And what a position for the manager to be in, for the club to be in, if the players are that much behind him. I look back to the West Ham game and I watched that and I thought, in that game they seem to all be behind the manager. And 1 or 2 things kind of happened. 1 or 2 players came in, more players come in, more changes. You know, some of the old, I wouldn't say old guard, but some of the more recognisable faces to us from last season went out, and it all got a bit frayed, and we started underperforming. But it just says to me, look at how much Cooper can get this right if you're just patient with him, you know. And this is what I touched on earlier on. I kind of got distracted, but this is how it all works, isn't it? It's about relationships. It's about the gelling thing we've heard so much. And when it gets going, who knows where we could go? So I'm going to say it to you, like I've said it to everybody else. Is it enough to keep Forest up?
If we keep playing like we did Saturday, definitely. In one word, definitely.
Well, thanks for coming on, mate. Great to speak.
Yeah, Chaz, thanks for having us on.
Really good to see you, and I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah. See you soon. Take care. Cheers.
Mate. More great points there from Warren. Really, really good stuff. Really knows his stuff, and appreciates him coming on. Always a pleasure to talk. Before we get the last guest in tonight, who's been waiting ever so patiently, haven't you, Mollo? He's sat in the background. Just a few more comments. I think there's some interesting ones. Simon says, how's my life? Anyway, that's what I would have said anyway. All the comments, it was teamwork. Everyone is mentioning every player. This is the spirit of the fans. Absolutely. It's teamwork all around, isn't it? It's the club pulling together. And that's why Cooper is so important to me, because he pulls the club together. When the players show the commitment and the desire, what the manager expects, the fans are up on their feet singing Forest the Magic. And then that song alone is taking the City ground to another level, and obviously spurs them on. You see Ryan Yates at the end sort of waving his arms and things, and we all love to see a bit of that. The one thing we didn't see at the weekend, which was slightly disappointing, I don't know if Cooper did it out of respect, but we didn't see many of these, did we? That was probably thinking it's probably not the point to get into that just yet, but who knows. Just a couple of comments. Like I've said all the way through, keep giving it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to DoreOnTour. Try and get into 10,000. We all know he works his socks off. He's always at it. every time after the match, we're like, are you coming for a beer? Are you coming to the pub? And he's like, no, I've got to go home editing. I've got to do this. I've got to do a show. I've got to go on a Tottenham show. All this. Frustrating at the time, but it just proves how hard he works. So if you can get him up, please give a thumbs up to this episode. Support what I'm trying to do. Still very new to it. Done about 4 or 5 of these, but love doing it. And hopefully can talk a little bit of sense. Probably more than Dore, to be honest. But he'll kill me for saying that. No, just give it a thumbs up. And if you could subscribe to my channel as well, Do Daily. Just find it as it's spelt on the screen. Just find it, and I'd absolutely love you to subscribe to that and get a bit of support there. Something completely different. Again, I'll probably talk more sense about football, although that's questionable. But it's something that I'm quite passionate about as well. Just the last couple of comments before we get Molo in. Mr. Dan said we should credit the subs and tactical change from Cooper too, because he's got it absolutely spot on. And this is exactly what he was doing week on, week out last season, wasn't it? When the changes were needed, we spoke about the likes of Keenan Davis, there was Zinchenko, it always seemed to be at the right time. It always seemed to be when it was good for the team, not necessarily when it was good for the player. And that's putting the team first, isn't it? And it says, hey, Des, as well, as a fab performance from our very own superstar. I wanted to give credit to Chiarte. He was immense. I just slightly I'll be completely honest with you. I just slightly criticised him after about 5 minutes at the match. I went, he's had a couple of bad touches. And then I turned around to my mate on about 70 minutes and went, he's played brilliant today. He said, you were calling him 10 minutes ago. Weren't quite, but you know what I mean. Mark says, for those not fortunate enough to be going to Arsenal, where were you watching the game on Sunday? I fancy a get together with a family. Yeah, make sure you get out and watch it. Mr. Dan, as soon as Liverpool bought on Trent Alexander-Arnold, Cooper reacted and went 3-5-2 and 5-3-2 to minimise any threat. And of course, he will know Trent Alexander-Arnold from his youth. He would have worked with him. He would know exactly what his skills are. Somebody said to me after the game, someone who's not as big a football fan said, I seen Cooper whispering to Trent Alexander-Arnold. He says, it's because he'll know him. He'll know his strengths and weaknesses, and obviously he's having a word in his ear and he gets to know him. But again, to Forest's benefit, it worked. It absolutely worked. And even playing Tyro, that could have been a masterstroke on its own. We probably got another 5% out of him because he's playing his old club. I saw an interview where he was really appreciative to them and thank them for what he did. And then when you go back and score against them, what a feeling that must have been. This guy again, subscribe to Des, link in the title. Definitely do that. Definitely getting towards the bottom now, Molo. So. Did you hear Cooper say something that rhymes with Pollock on air? I'm not sure. I can't comment. Charlie says, although Chiarte was great on Saturday in his previous games, he was reckless in positioning. Mangala fills me with lots more confidence. Probably what I was saying after 5 minutes, but I was made to eat my words. So we'll see how that pans out over the next couple of weeks. But I tend to agree with that one, Charlie, to some degree. So I'm going to get Molo in. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, fantastic. Just about recovered. I've learned 2 things from Saturday. One, that we've got every chance of staying up if now things are starting to come together and settle in. And 2, I'm way too old to go out before and after a game celebrating. It's been a tough couple of days, but worth every minute. Mike, a lot of the points you've mentioned in the last 10 or 15 minutes. It was me that sent in that stat I saw about Freuler. I thought he was really good, but I hadn't realised just how hard he worked. I missed the start of the show because I was out and about. That, for me, everything's been building almost since half-time at Leicester, where we were a bit gung-ho in that first half with the team selection. Clearly wasn't working. We were a bit tighter second half. It was still not great, obviously, because we were 3-0 down and they got a bit of a lucky goal near the end. But ever since then, he's gone back to the build from the back. He's decided on what his centre halves are. He's not listened to all the idiots on the internet saying Cook's got no pace, Cook's got no pace. Nigel Clough had no pace, but the first 5 yards are in your head, aren't they? And he's got that partnership. So he's built it on Cook and McKenna. It's been tough. Wolves was not pretty to watch. But, again, the number of interceptions and clearances, because we weren't great and we were giving the ball away by those centre halves. And, you know, to be fair, Henderson's been playing really well when the ball's not at his feet, admittedly. And now in front of him, the midfield, as you went through it with, I think it was Ant, absolutely sensational. You couldn't. I've been very wary because I really rated Kouyaté when I used to watch him play from time to time, and I wondered if his legs were gone. I'm just wondering if he hasn't been match fit, and he's now getting there because he was really, really good. And a final little thing from that stat attack I picked up on, the player who ran the most was obviously Freuler, then not surprisingly Yates. The third most distance covered, although it was miles behind Freuler, was Morgan Gibbs-White. And I can see in Gibbs-White, there's such a good player in there, but I call him the nearly man. He nearly puts a great ball through. He nearly scores. His flick nearly works. It's like you can't be nearly pregnant. It's no good, is it, unless it works? And I think it's coming. And if he keeps working like that, he'll be fine anyway. I've singled out players there, but like everyone said, every single player on that pitch from the start of the game and finish the game deserves credit. And as we all knew, despite a few people knocking around with their rubbish, we all knew Cooper would start to find his way. And it's not so much we've turned the corner or a turning point. It's more like we're making our way round that bend now, aren't we, in the right direction? So it's baby steps. And what, as you say, if Carlsberg did weekends, apart from the hangover on Sunday.
No, you weren't the only one, mate. And when people are trying to tweet me about Liverpool, it don't go down very well when I'm 8 pints in. But anyway, now a couple of things I wanted to pick up on there. The Gibbs-White thing, obviously, I'm a massive fan. I think with Gibbs-White or Lingard or Johnson, the problem is we've had to go defensive, and the attacking plays coming out week on week. But at that point where we had to go full-on defence against Aston Villa, which wasn't pretty, they're not going to have much of the ball. It's going to bounce back off them. That's why I think Tyro's key in some shape or form. But I think the more adventurous we get, the more confidence it builds. This is why I'm talking about turning the corner, because the more adventurous we get, those players are going to get more into the game. I've seen some absolute. And very rarely, not many, but 2 or 3 moments where Lingard, Gibbs-White and Johnson have linked up and it's looked breathtaking, but we've not done it enough times in one game, because we haven't had that kind of pressure on teams. I think the only one really was Everton for about 10, 15 minutes after we scored.
As well.
And Tottenham as well, they played well because Tottenham play on the goal line. They goal line their own goal. But they almost played into our hands. But I just think when we come up against the team, and I do think we're gonna it's an old cliche in football, I know, but I think we're gonna give somebody a bit of a not a hiding, but a bit of a shock. It might be a Palace, it might be a Brentford, where we might go and win the game 3-0, for example. And then all of a sudden, like, you think, wow, where did that come from? But these guys have got that in their locker, especially if they all click on the same day. Against Liverpool, taking nothing away from the front players, particularly Morgan Gibbs-White and Lingard, the other 8 were probably better because of the nature of the football match. Do you see what I mean?
On the ball, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, on the ball. Because and lots of people, this is what I'm getting to, lots of people only see on the ball. And when you've got someone like Gibbs-White running his socks off, Lingard coming more into a game, I mentioned that shot he had. If that's on his right-hand side, it could easily be in the top corner. And then
he struck it too well, didn't he?
Yeah, you've got.
It was one of them where he struck it too well.
You've got. So I think it's important that they that we look at it with a bit of realism. I've asked the question all the way through, and the reason I did that was to see how far we're going to take this win, and I don't quite think we've turned the corner, despite all my positivity, despite... but like you say...
I think we're on that way round it, hopefully, aren't we?
I think we've got to... If we finish this set of 3 with... If we went unbeaten, wow, But if we got 4 points, against teams who we would have looked at the start of the season and gone, we'll take points from Palace and Brentford at home. If we go 4 points, I think we're in a proper battle to stop up. On that performance on Saturday, play like that. But again, it's finding that intensity. It's finding that performance week on week. This is what some of the pundits were saying early on, wasn't it? They were saying you have to play like that every week and you burn out. The problem is playing like that, you'll pick up injuries, just because of the nature of the play and the amount of running players have to do. Gibbs White running that far every game or 4 year, they're going to pick up hammies and things like that. So it all sort of takes its toll later in the season. But if we can get through some more break, everybody regroups. You might have 1 or 2 players have cracking World Cups, be flying from that. And then who knows? You come back, everyone's going to be a bit stale in terms of the league after the World Cup. You get a point at Man United maybe because there's nothing to be scared of there. I think Chelsea will be a much tougher game at home on New Year's Day, but first game after the break, you might get a point. And then all of a sudden, you're thinking, wow, we've come back from this strong. We might get beat by Chelsea and we might go and beat Southampton after that. And the crazy thing I'm talking about now is that Southampton is only 6 games away and it's in January. Just dawned on me it's totally irrelevant, but it just dawned on me that that's the case.
I'll come back to your point you were saying about the running they've been doing. And I've genuinely thought, don't know this for sure. I think that might be one of the reasons Jono was on the bench, because his level of effort, and he must have been, bruised all over at Brighton, was sensational. And I watched the game back from Brighton on catch up, and you just don't see how much running they did. Lingard got pelters, and I don't understand. At Brighton, he ran his nuts off, didn't he? He was everywhere, like covering that side. And I feel like that Liverpool was, and the guy who said it wasn't a good Liverpool side, I'd take that Curtis Jones in our squad all day long, and some of the lads off their bench in midfield, and our midfield outplayed them. But it's been built. It's not just that game. Yes, we kind of. It's the first game maybe in the last 4 where we've looked as well as solid at the back. We've looked more dangerous on the break, and it's those baby steps in the right direction. Without being solid at the back, we don't win that game. The only time we look dodgy, there's one good ball on there through for that young Carvalho. And then at the end, weirdly, when we had 3 big centre halves on the pitch, one of whom 6'4", who I think's going to be our centre half for the next 10 years at Forest, suddenly their big centre half gets 3 headers at goal or whatever it was. But I think the whole thing has been built on the last 4 games, not just people saying, is this the turning point? I feel, like I said, it's a very long, slow bend we're going round. And I don't think we're going to be easy to beat anymore.
I think what's happening, and it was what we was crying out for about 3 or 4 weeks ago, is we were saying somehow Cooper's got to stumble across his first team. And he's made some decisions. I think it was you who said it. The decision with Cook, people saying he couldn't run. I'm asked by a football website that I do a bit of tweeting for, as you know. I'm asked to pick a team every week, and it's easy. It's not easy. It's not easy to do it, even when it doesn't mean anything. I get hammered for it, on Twitter. Which I can understand, I know what position I'm putting myself in. But imagine being Cooper and everyone saying, do this, do that, seeing things like what I do, going, oh, look, what he thinks, blah, blah. So someone said, that's a good team. I've done it a few times and I've picked completely different teams. You can't do that every week. But I'm just thinking of the game as a one-off and this is the way it is. But at the end of the day, he's made decisions, tough decisions again. Right at the start of the season, when we were talking about players, we were talking about sentimentality and who was going to be moved on and who weren't going to play. And it's come back to that again, hasn't it? Because it's horrible what's kind of happening with Worrell, you know. And I didn't like it when Johnson weren't in the team, you know, because that's the sentimentality. But at the end of the day, they come on in a winning performance, and again, they can only improve from it. So sometimes you've got to think, have they taken them out the firing line to bring them back a little bit? You know, Johnson now will be chomping at the bit when he comes on. I don't envisage they'll change the team on Sunday. I'm sure we'll probably go with exactly the same. Do you?
I think he might change the formation just because of the way Arsenal play. I could see a change. I think your point about the sentimentality is dead right, but I think every Forest fan with a brain cell, and there's plenty of us, I'm glad to say, is not all like those idiots said. We know that the likelihood is Worrell and Johnson, if we stay up, are going to be the mainstays of our team for the next 7, 8, 9 years. Worrell will be a natural replacement for Cook when he picks up his 5th booking because of the nature of his game. He's probably going to pick up that 5th booking. But I like to think Worrell's a bit of a student of the game because of how much he's improved right the way through the academy onwards, that he's watching the way Cook plays and thinks, there's a guy with no pace who's always in the right place. Do you know what I mean? Particularly while he's in form. I know he had a dodgy start to the season, but, you know, looking and cutting out the danger, organising others, and I'm picking on one player because they're all doing it, but we all know in a foot race, Cook's not going to win many, but he doesn't need to get into a foot race when he's got a 5-yard start as such, does he? And that's what I want to see, the next step for Worrell, isn't it? Because Worrell has done it, and I like to think he's going to come back stronger than ever when he's back in and give the manager a tough choice, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Keeping the shirt. And it's just, yeah, I think the sentimentality, I 100% agree, and he's made the tough choices. I don't think it was a tough choice with Jono, because I'm not sure that Jono would have been able to be, I don't know this, but the kicking he took at Brighton and the amount of he ran, it wouldn't surprise me if he was still sore kind of thing. And the centre, the one he did really well as well, to be fair. But it's exciting times again, isn't it? The positivity's creeping back in. The beauty of it, the people who go to the games, no one wanted Cooper gone, did they? Anyway, we all know that he's the guy. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier with your comment. We've got to be together as a club, and he is that guy that brings everyone together. Just final thing on Freuler, the guy who ran nearly 12 kilometres in one game, despite being class. You'd think, wouldn't you, he'd be gone home, passed out on his bed, dead, you know, like just relaxing. And bless him, we saw him out. We went for a meal in the evening. At some point, we met up with our wives, and don't know why they wanted to meet us, the state we're in, but we went into a restaurant, and Freuler was having a meal with his family. We didn't want to disturb him because he's with his family, but as we left, we just popped in and said, sorry to you, thank you so much, brilliant day. And what a lovely guy he is as well. He, because we had the little kids that met up with us as well, he do you want a picture sort of thing, a really humble chap. And I think we've seen why we've signed him now. We've seen what he's capable of. He's been getting a bit better. I think him and Yates are building up a partnership that the third person, whoever that might be, Coyote, Mangala, I still think there'll be a place for O'Brien at some point this season when the time comes. It's just, as you said, he's starting to find his best partnerships, his best team squad, really, because you can't win a game necessarily with the 11. And that was a decent Liverpool side on paper.
I just want to read this comment out from Brian. Perhaps the TV pundits taking the piss about getting 22 players might bite their bum. Okay, so players do get injured due to intensity, but strangely with our squad, maybe we are able to better manage it. It's an interesting point. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but like you said there, it's almost now becoming, it's a squad game. Players now have to fight for the shirt. You know, they've always had to fight for the shirt. You know, that's the nature of it. But once you've got an 11, and we know Cooper doesn't mind going with the same 11 when it's spot on last season. You know, it was almost the same 11 every week. There might have been one or two players vying for positions. So we'll go with it if it's working. And I think it's just interesting now because you've got players who know they're going to have to work hard, knuckle down. And the reason I was getting to Wowell and that comment makes it more relevant was nobody's safe, are they? The guy's the captain.
No.
You know, I do feel for him in many ways, and many times, you know, as much as Cook's played brilliant in the last 2 games, I've said I think Wowell should be in. But that's my personal opinion. That's football, isn't it?
4 games. Last 4 games. Cook for the last 4 games for me.
And I can't argue that point now, but we can only look at it from the outset, can't we? And I just, again, if Cook is injured, you know, we've got a guy who we feel is more than capable to come in. Yes, he had a sticky patch at the start of the season. But again, all these players sort of on the fringes, because all I was saying at the start of the season was we have to buy better than what we've got. And I think we're probably, and the manager's probably thinking this as well, we probably did buy better than what we've got, and we're starting to see some of the fruits of it. Yeah. When we signed Aurora, everybody thought he was going to be a reserve to Nico Williams. But I think that's the other way around now when we've got a full-strength team. And that's all I've ever wanted from Forest. Buy better than what you've already got or don't buy them because there'd be no point, would there? So these players might come into their own later on. Mangala, Niakate maybe, when fit. All of a sudden, they're sat on the bench. So Kouyaté, who played brilliant on Saturday, might have an off game against Arsenal. So then all of a sudden you got Mangala champing at the bit, you know, and who we think is better. And again with Awoniyi, if he don't score in 2, 3, 4 games, whatever, or he don't play well for 2 games, Johnson just steps back in. You know, and it's that kind of you're just building into something that feels a lot more realistic. Leicester was just kamikaze, wasn't it? It felt like nobody knew what they was doing. It felt like the manager didn't know what he was doing, and I don't criticise him. It felt like the players didn't know what they were doing. It felt like the fans didn't have a clue what was happening in front of them. You know, and all of a sudden, from like you say, from that half time, they've just even if it's the fact that Leicester might have dropped off a little bit, we've found a bit of confidence from it. You know, because we got battered that much in the first half, and then they've taken it forward. So, yeah, good chat, mate. Really appreciate you coming on.
One last question for you on what you just said. You said about signing better than we got. How do you sign better than Yates in that role at the moment? He looked like a good version of Declan Rice, didn't he?
Do you know, I've been saying it over the couple of a good Declan Rice, because I'm a massive fan of Rice, but he was rubbish at Forest. But I've been saying over the last couple of weeks, do you know, I think people get a little bit carried away with the pundits. Roy Keane, every time he comes down, he goes, oh, he says something like, Yates, he's got his limitations and all this. He's a good lad, but he's got his limitations. I think he's talking rubbish because he's better than a lot of players in the Premier League, a lot of midfield players. What he did at the weekend, you know, winning the ball, passing the ball, creating chances, getting on the end of things, you know, playing triangles, you know, like other teams have played against us, breaking things up, upsetting people, professional free kicks, you know, where he falls over and he lays down for 5 minutes. All those things go into making a great midfield player, don't they? It's about controlling the game. The midfield is about controlling the football match.
Yeah. But he's also now, I'm not just talking about Premier League, just generally for his age, experience is coming through bit by bit. Everything about his game, as you've just said, to make those niggly little tackles, and all that, you've got to be in the right place and read the game, haven't you? And his reading of the game is probably come on through that experience. And yeah, you know me, I've never criticised Yates ever. I've loved him from day one, and I've always said whatever level he plays at, he'll step up to it each time, like he always has done. And I said the other day to someone, there's not going to be that long, and he'll appear in an England squad. I've said that, and I got laughed at, and I wonder if people are still laughing after Saturday. Not saying before the World Cup.
It's starting to creep in, isn't it? I'll be completely honest with you. I never criticised him, again, because he's one of our players and you want him to do well. I was never hunting him down, but I wasn't sure what he'd bring to the team when he come in. But what he's proved from when he came in is adaptable. He's adaptable to any given situation. And again, going back to what I was just saying there about the midfield, in the midfield, the game is won in midfield. You control the game, you dictate the pace, you dictate the play, you link in with the strikers, the defenders, the fullbacks. And so the biggest strength of a midfielder for me, somebody like Ryan Yates, who is allegedly limited, it's his adaptability. And every time he needs to adapt to a situation, he does it. Every manager comes in and likes him. You know, they've all got different ideas. They've all got different ideas of what Ryan Yates should be. Is he a defensive midfielder? Is he a box-to-box? Is he somebody who you know, whatever, a hatchet man type player? Or is he a ball player? They've all got different ideas of what Ryan Yates is, but he's adaptable. And that's key in midfield, isn't it? Because we live in a Premier League in a world where these players aren't very adaptable. That a lot of football these days is very much the same. You know, we watch Man City, and for as amazing as it is, they play away and they don't defer from it. Or you've got other teams like Villa who are playing in a way and it's not very pretty, and it's all about the fullbacks, and the midfield kind of gets bypassed. When we were growing up, Marlo, we had sort of Steve Hodge and Roy Keane, or Steve Hodge and Neil Webb. One went, one didn't. One went. There was no conversation about it. There was no big thing, like the Gerrard and Lampard argument for years. Can they play together? You know, I tell you what, Cloughie would have had them playing together. 100%. He'd have had them adaptable, and he'd have had them realising the jobs when one's got the ball and what they do. And again, it comes down to what we've been talking about a lot tonight, is playing out of possession. Steve Cooper's talking about it as much as I've heard any other Premier League manager talk about it. But I bet you in the next few months, they're all talking about playing out of possession. Because all of a sudden, it's very fashionable to have the football. You know, defences struggle. In the modern game, defences struggle because the attackers are so technical, so quick, so athletic. But when you've got players in and around doing the jobs like Yates are doing, you know, fantastic. That's why Rice is a top player, because he covers every blade of grass. He's a different level, Rice. He didn't play very well at Forest, I thought, but in general, he's a fantastic player. I went to see West Ham last season, and he's everywhere. You know, and that's what I saw from Yates on Saturday. And I alluded to the fact Jordan Henderson still plays for England.
Yeah.
So on that basis, I totally agree with you that Yates is going to the World Cup.
I didn't say that. I said he'll make a squad one day.
No, I know. I'm going to World Cup. But no, on that note, I don't think he is, but who knows? I appreciate you coming on, mate. Great conversation again. Really got to the crux of that midfield thing, and I wanted to get my piece out about Yates, so you forced that out of me with my hand behind my back. But no, appreciate it. Been a great show. See you.
No worries. Good stuff. Look after yourself.
Cheers.
See you soon. Bye.
Brilliant. That managed to get through a few things that I really wanted to say. Molo coaxed it out of me. I was going to say it before the end of the show, but no, honestly, I was that impressed with Yates. I thought it was his best game, like many other players in the team. What a weekend! What a result! You know, it gives us hope for the rest of the season. It gives me hope that I might be back on Dialing with Des with a couple of W's to talk about, rather than the dreaded L and getting that tin out again. Hopefully, it's buried right at the bottom of the cupboard until after Christmas at least. Give us a few weeks off. But I'll be back next week, maybe, if Dore lets me. I'll be back next week to talk about another big result at Arsenal. Hopefully we can stick one up them as well. We all admire Arsenal. I think they're almost everyone's second favourite team, aren't they? Until we play them. Love them until we play them, but absolutely detest them when I'm in the same stadium. Looking forward to the game. Looking forward to going with the guys. Really, really appreciate all the input from those that have come on. It's what makes it, of course. I can't talk all night. my voice is going as it is, and I'm only just getting over a bad throat. So really appreciate all the guys coming in. Really appreciate all the comments. Appreciate Dore letting me do this. Just another opportunity to talk about Forest and talk about beating the Scousers at home. It's never going to get boring. And if we pick up more results like that, we're going to be in for a fun season. Let's hope we've turned the corner. Still not sure, but we live in hope, don't we? We go to Arsenal and you never know. Like Brian Clough said, it's 11 men versus 11 men. You can only do what you can do. So until next week, guys, just a reminder that Dore will be back with his preview show on, I'm not sure when it'll be on, probably Saturday. Of course, he'll have a vlog out and he'll be doing his review show. Hopefully, I'm back next Monday. Please give a thumbs up to this episode if you've enjoyed it. I've absolutely loved it, getting stuck into it. If you agree, disagree, think I'm talking absolute nonsense, please leave a comment, even if you're watching after it's live or when it's not live. We'd really, really appreciate that. And of course, if you can, subscribe to the channel, get Dore up to 10K. He deserves it for all his hard work. If you can subscribe to Do Daily, that would be absolutely amazing. Just at that subscribe button, even if you're not going to watch it, it's not that bad. It's really light-hearted stuff. It's just something that bit different. Just a few comments before I go. Dore saying, hit the likes. He is there somewhere. He is watching. Someone said, what's wrong with Colback? Perhaps a question for next week. Adam agrees with me. I never rated Jordan Henderson, to be honest. This is a good point, though, to be fair. Henderson at Sunderland was like Yates. You never know. He could go on to bigger and better things, hopefully, at Forest. Warren says, great stream, Des. Come on, you Reds. Mr. Dan says, great stream, Des. Chapo says, come on, you Reds. Simon says, Mollo, take a test. Don't look and sound well. He did say he'd been on a bit of a session on Saturday before and after the game. So he's an old man. I think he's still recovering from that. I can't criticise. I'm just the same. Dan says, you'll never beat Des Daily. Thanks for that. And just to leave it on that note, they'd be stupid to write us off. All I could think about going into the game on Saturday was, I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off. They did, and look what happened. So until next time, hopefully they won't be stupid enough to write us off on Saturday. Hopefully we prove that we shouldn't be written off. Up the Forest. Come on, you Reds. We go again. Until next week, guys, have a good one.